Young. Young masters, young mistresses. Charlie was also dumbstruck when he saw his teenager bosses coming into the bar with raised chins and awestruck expressions. So, this is what Lotus looks like. Ariel's amused gaze rummaged the crowded dance floor right away. Her feet were aching to take a few steps. Among them, she loved dancing to its extent. A talent she got from Michelle. Careful. Stay close with me. Cendric immediately placed his hands on her shoulder and her waist, shielding her from the hoppers who usually come and go to the entrance. Hello, Charlie. How is the game tonight? Arvin asked the still shocked middle-aged manager. It is good, sir. The bar is always full of people. He staggered with his answer. Don't worry, Charlie. If our dads find out we are here, Arvin will cover for you. That is what he promised Hector a while ago. Hyacinth twitched with her statement. Even her, she was not sure if Arvin could save them tonight. When she glanced at her fellow young girls, she was stunned to see that Ariel and Cendric were already on the dance floor, while Alyssa was now sitting at the counter ordering her drinks. I am thankful for that, young Master Hansen, but the thing is, you are still teenagers and you shouldn't be here. Especially young Mistress Ariel. President Lee will kill me. Charlie whimpered while he stamped his feet. He couldn't imagine Glenn's dim expression if he found out his only princess was in Lotus dancing and drinking, or dancing while drinking. He will skin me alive, young master. And the director boy, I think I just dug my own grave. He continued, while his eyes were begging for these headaches to retreat now that it is not yet late. Arvin, I think Charlie is right. Let's go back. Hyacinth held his hand tight, but he just squinted his blue ocean orbs at his cousin. We're already here, sister. How about if you join Allie at the counter? Come on, he strode to the counter rather. Charlie and Hyacinth followed closely behind. Their anxious looks were glancing around, hoping no possible loopholes of their so-called unplanned prison break. Hey, Sister Jacinth, try this margarita. It is my first time tasting it. It is good, Alyssa told Hyacinth while gesturing to the bartender to give her big sister a glass of margarita with a slice of lime on the rim of the glass. Allie, did you just drink the whole glass? Hyacinth asked with her wide gaze. She took the glass from her cousin, whose face suddenly became red, while pursing her lips tight. Young mistress, don't drink, please. You are not allowed yet. Charlie entreated while he hurriedly walked beside Alyssa. He had never been this appalled before. Alyssa had just swallowed greedily the whole glass, and now her eyes were dilating as her face was burning red. Her body was even swaying while sitting down. Too late. She is already drunk. Arvin just shook his head, feeling disappointed as he held his sister's arm. No, I am not drunk here, Sister Jacinth. Try it. It really tastes good. Alyssa brushed Arvin's hand off while giving the other glass of margarita to Hyacinth. I am not drinking it. Hyacinth firmly uttered. Please, join me. Alyssa pouted her lips and flickered her eyes, showing Hyacinth a puppy look that she learned from her Aunt Rachel. Alyssa! Hyacinth exclaimed. Charlie and Arvin were just watching the two when Cendric and Ariel joined them. Both were gasping for air. Whew! That was fun! Ariel told everyone with excitement. Let's rest for a while. Let's dance again later. Soft drinks for the young ladies. Please. Cendric couldn't continue his sentence when he saw the one sitting at the counter beside Charlie was swaying, and her eyes were already drooping. Is she drunk? Ariel was also dumbfounded. Told you. I am not drunk. Alyssa harshly exclaimed as she lifted her head and sharply stared at her cousins, who suddenly became worried about her condition. Uncle Kevin will kill us, Ariel anxiously uttered as she shut her eyes. Dad won't kill any of you. So, don't worry here, Ariel. You want to try some margarita. You won't regret it. She even held the glass closed to Ariel's mouth, making the latter accidentally sip some of the liquid and spill some on her clothes. Ariel isn't drinking, Allie. She is just going to watch a live band and— Shh! Cendric, just a sip, okay? Your girlfriend will be fine. Ops, I must be quiet. Your relationship is a secret. Alyssa cut him off with a sneer mixed with a tease. She even put her pointer finger on her mouth, gesturing to Cendric to keep quiet. The rest was now deeply troubled. They couldn't bring her home like this. Where were they going to hide her now? When they glanced at the mastermind, they were all baffled. Where is he? Hyacinth annoyingly asked. Arvin just evaporated. Cendric was also confused. This wasn't his best friend's style at all. Maybe. He went to the restroom. Cendric responded while he glanced around. When he was not looking, Ariel took the chance to drink the margarita Alyssa was holding. The two even winked at each other. When Cendric glanced back at her, he narrowed his stare at his girlfriend. Ariel, what did I tell you? He sternly asked at once. I guess I forgot about that. Hey, it really tastes good, Ariel uttered while licking her lips instead. They could see that the effect of tequila was already displaying in her actions and on her beet-red face. Cendric, who agreed to this he now called STVPI'd plan, was regretting. The same with the rest, he was now feeling a little flurried. Wait, excuse me, need to go to the restroom, Alyssa suddenly told them as she got off the bar stool. Cendric and Charlie had to hold her hands, for her legs were now wobbling, like broken furniture. Sister, do you need a company? Ariel asked with also glassy eyes. Nope. You two need to savor this night. Your relationship has just started last week, right? Go and dance. Don't waste our once-in-a-lifetime freedom. See you later. Gotta drain this. The rest just followed her, with their worried gazes except for Ariel, who was giggling, while she wrapped her hands around Cendric's waist. In the ladies' room, Alyssa was humming while she fixed herself. When she was about to go back to her friends, she heard some noise at the back door. Looks like there is a thrilling show outside, she uttered while squinting her eyes. When Alyssa burst the back door open, she was stunned to see 3 drunk men and 1 teenager fighting. She gawked at the teenager who seemed to be skilled in self-defense. She saw how he threw his flying kick at the 3 drunk men and landed perfectly on the ground. Awesome! One more time! She even exclaimed while clapping. When the teenager turned around, he was astonished to see he had an audience. He glanced at the 3 who were now unconscious as he wiped his mouth with the back of his palm. He then shifted his proud stare at the young lady, who was still clapping and giggling at him like a foolish fan. You've been watching me, he sneered when he was now in front of her. He could clearly see his huge fan was drunk. You are awesome. You killed them, Alyssa enunciated with her wide eyes. I didn't kill them. They are just sleeping, the valiant teenager corrected with a smirk. He memorized her face. He could notice she was from a prominent family. He could also see she was just like him, a teen or maybe younger. Even so, you defeated them, Alyssa still affirmed. Indeed, I did. So, do I have a reward? He asked, feeling advantageous. This bar is my father's. As a courageous young man, I can give you anything you want as long as I can give it, Alyssa uttered while she raised her chin and swayed her index finger. Anything I want. Are you sure? The teen asked, sneering. Yeah, anything you. She wasn't able to finish her sentence for the young mysterious man just kissed her cheek. She was flabbergasted while her hand touched her still wet cheek. That is what I want. Thanks for the free kiss. He even whispered before he left. You are welcome. Alyssa whispered back as she slowly turned around. She went back inside looking like she had just seen a ghost. She couldn't believe a mysterious teenager had just stolen a kiss from her. She could admit, even if it was just on the cheek, that was her first kiss from the opposite sex. She went back to the counter with her still awestruck gaze. Hyacinth narrowed her eyes on her cousin, whom she thought had just been possessed by something. Alyssa. Are you okay? She asked, while she held Alyssa's shoulder. I am fine, sisters. I think I just met my soulmate. Alyssa absent-mindedly replied, Really? What does he look like? Ariel, who was also a bit tipsy, asked with excitement. She even moved closer and faced Alyssa, who was now sitting at the counter. That is the problem. I can't remember his face, but he kissed me on my cheek. She responded inattentively, while touching her cheek the mysterious teen just kissed. Her mind was still oblivious to what happened at the back of their bar. He kissed you. Tell me, how was it? Ariel giggled while she shook her cousin. Awesome. Alyssa replied, like she was still daydreaming. Alyssa, are you all right? Hyacinth asked anxiously. Her worried gaze was now glued to the two whose fathers were both scary. She glared at Cendric right away. Cendric felt guilty, and since his partner was not around, he had to take all the blame for himself while asking internally, Bro, where are you? Do you have a brilliant plan, Cendric? Hyacinth nudged the keyed-up young man beside Charlie. Huh? Ah, well, we can't bring them home, he twitched. I know that! Hyacinth exclaimed with annoyance. It made him jittery even more. Where can we hide these two till the sun rises tomorrow, Charlie? He asked the manager, whose soul seemed to have left his body, or have seen some ghosts at the entrance. I don't think we need that. Young Master Park, he anxiously whispered, as he unintentionally held Cendric's hand. Charlie, are you okay? You are shaking? Hyacinth asked. Although she also felt twitchy, Charlie looked worse. He wasn't just shaking, he was terrified. Cendric glanced at the entrance where his frightened look was fixed, and even him he was mortified. He fell from the stool he was sitting and it made a loud thud. Young Master Park. Charlie immediately helped him get up. Cendric, are you okay? Hyacinth also exclaimed. Her anger was suddenly covered with concerns. Alyssa and Ariel were already inebriated. Arvin was nowhere to be found. Then Cendric just fell on the floor. How could she face her uncles now? Worse. How could she explain everything to her parents? My silent C, you didn't even drink anything yet. You already look drunk. Ariel even laughed while staring at her boyfriend. Haha, Cendric, what happened to you? Have you caught a lot of fish on the floor? Alyssa, whose senses had been woken up by the loud bang, even mocked. Stop screaming my name. Cendric scowled at them right away, hoping the one in the entrance didn't hear it. I have an idea. I saw the 3rd floor and the rooms are available. Alyssa can stay there till tomorrow, and we can just tell our parents we went out early. It was Arvin who came rushing from the stairs. When he saw his best friend getting up from the floor while Charlie held his hand, he shook his head. Don't tell me you are also drunk. When Ariel glanced at him, he saw her red face and glassy eyes. Ariel, you too? He hastily snorted, feeling stressed. Okay, here is the plan. Arvin began, but Charlie nudged him. Wait, Charlie. I have to tell them this. This is the plan. Ali and Ariel can sleep in the rooms on the 3rd floor. We will accompany them and we can tell Mom and Dad that we left the house early. But, young master. Charlie was now sweating all over. Cendric lowered his head, avoiding someone's sharp stare. The 3 girls, including Arvin, were facing the counter so they didn't see who was standing lordly behind them. Brilliant plan, young man. When Glenn's voice sprouted like a mushroom behind them, Arvin felt numbed. He sat straight at once. Huh. That man sounded like Daddy. Baby, did you just copy Dad's voice? I am telling him. You are in big trouble. Ariel even wrapped her hands around Cendric's neck, which the latter felt were sharp chains cutting his life. HRM, you kids forgot that today is Friday, huh? When Kevin's authoritative voice came like a clap of thunder, Even Alyssa chuckled. Haha, Daddy's voice is scary, but he is not here so it is okay. You forgot today is Friday, huh? She even copied her father's voice. Alyssa, look, behind you. Cendric whispered. When they heard his stuttering voice, they felt chills down their spines. They glanced at each other first before they slowly turned around. When they saw 6 pairs of eyes sternly staring at them, they cringed on their seats. Dad! Hyacinth softly spoke at her father, who was raising his eyebrow at her. What is up, kiddo? Mark smirked. Hello, Daddy. Ariel greeted her father in a low voice as she hesitantly raised her hand and waved at his father, whose face was as dark as the night. Daddy! Alyssa couldn't speak well when she saw her father's dagger stare. Dad, Mom is alone at home. We're going home now. Arvin tried to poke his father's weakness. But, you twins are grounded, Charlie. Buy me a new leather belt. Why? Yes. Director. Charlie stammered. The twins whimpered right away. They shrank on their seats at once. Bro, may I borrow that after you used it? It was Brandon, while his disappointing stare was glued to Cendric, whose face became colorless. Their remaining uncles were shaking their heads, feeling sorry for these rascals, but they deliberately broke a very important rule. Hence, they needed to be punished. What are the consequences for disobeying our household rules? Lynette ambled left and right while holding a stick, sternly stared at the twins who were looking down at the floor with their clasped hands in between their laps. She was hitting the stick with her palm like a teacher. Her wine-colored hair was tied in a bun, and she was also wearing big reading glasses. Wearing a pencil-cut skirt and long-sleeved shirt, plus a blazer, she could actually surpass the feature of the scariest teacher in the 70s. Mom, you won't be using that to us, right? Alyssa softly asked while twitching her lips when she lifted her head. Based on the redness on her mom's palm, the stick could definitely cut her delicate skin. What do you mean, I won't be using this? Of course I will. Lynette firmly responded. Mom, you are the kindest person I've ever met. You won't really hit your only daughter. She still begged. SHVT up, Ali. Do you think Mom will spare you? Look at her now. She doesn't even look like our mom, Arvin muttered in a whisper while he sharply stared at his twin sister. When the twins heard Kevin's footsteps going downstairs, they shifted their terrified stares to him. Sweetheart, I have to go now. Wow, you look different, Kevin uttered as he almost slipped on the footstep of the grand stairs when Lynette turned around. His wife dressed up just to show their children she was scary. Lynette adjusted her glasses while she smiled at her husband. Kev, do I look scary now? She whispered. You do. You look quite fierce, Kevin whispered back while he gave his wife a peck on the cheek. Punish them harshly. Oh, Charlie already sent my new leather belt. You know what I mean. He deliberately made his voice loud and stern. It made the two shrink on their seats in fear. I sure will. Take care. When Kevin left, Lynette faced her twins back. Now, where shall we start? She asked, while raising her right eyebrow. Mom, please. Alyssa whimpered. Her red cheeks were getting purple. She also had a splitting headache and she was still dizzy. How could she face more pain? I love you, Mommy. Arvin hastily uttered. He already experienced being spanked on the bottom by his mother. But he thought today would be the strongest blow. Not working, Arvin, Lynette firmly spoke. Position now. She even added, if only the two had the power to disappear, they would have done it. Endway dicient, in the afternoon. In James' grandparents' villa, Eric, their butler for years, was making coffee for his young master, while the latter was talking to someone on the phone. Okay. How is Dad? What, wheelchair bound? What did the doctor say? He could hear James exclaimed while he was clutching his phone tight. His fingers that were nestling on the table were also curled into a tight fist as his jaw hardened. Something terrible happened, he thought. Young master, here is your coffee. Eric placed the coffee on a saucer on the table in front of him, and James just glanced at him while nodding. Okay. Just tell Mom I called. I am fine here. Tell Grandpa not to worry too much. Bye. He then hung up and sipped the coffee Eric made. Young master, how is Master Dave? Eric asked as he sat on the dining chair opposite him. Pitt said Dad will use a wheelchair from now on, he responded. Eric slammed the table with his fist when he heard what James told him. He couldn't believe his master for more than a decade would be in that situation forever. Dave was an athletic man in his prime, and just because of one bullet, it toppled his strong physique, and maybe including his life. Will he continue to lead your business, sir? The senator must have been devastated. He continued. He will continue. His leg was shot, and not his brain. Grandpa is already investigating Dad's incident, James replied with his narrowed eyes. Do you think it has something to do with your uncle? Eric's statement made James rigid. He leaned on the backrest and firmly stared at him. Eric, you've been with Mom's family for a long time. You understand our situation better than any of the people in both clans. Power hungry, betraying your own blood for the sake of living lavishly, and this, he sternly told him. Yes, young master, I absolutely understand everything. Rest assured all vital information your parents told me is safe. Eric answered back. I know. Be careful. You are our eyes and ears against my uncle and his son, James gently uttered. His fierce look a while ago was slowly turning soft. He knew he could trust Eric. He was his mom's family's butler for a long time. You must be vigilant too, young master. You are the only heir of your family's empire. I should hire a secret bodyguard for you. I need to disguise myself. There is only one person in Townsend who knows about my background. Eric smiled at his words. He knew who that person was. His lips curled up as it was slowly turning to sneer. Is that young Mistress Lee from the powerful Lee household? Let go, Eric. Jacinth and I are best friends. I give up on pursuing her. I guess she really just cares for me as a friend. While he mentioned Hyacinth's name, the image of the girl he kissed at the bar was slowly outlining in his mind. This is my father's bar. He couldn't help but whisper. What is it, young master? Eric asked as he moved his head closer. He seemed to hear James mumble something while smiling alone. What is on his mind again, he thought. The last time he saw him sneering alone was this morning. Eric, do you know the owner of Lotus Bar? He suddenly asked. It made Eric almost jump to his seat. Lotus Bar? That is where you went last night? That is where you got your bruise, young master. Who did that to you? Eric became frantic right away. He ignored James' question. He was focused on what happened to him when he went home last night. He was in a mess. The corner of his lips had dried blood, and his shirt was wrinkled. I just got a little encounter with 3 drunk men at the back of the bar, but I beat them all. I left them sleeping on the ground now. Tell me, who is the owner of Lotus Bar? His voice was becoming impatient. He gazed at Eric, telling him, Answer my question now. Is there a CCTV in that area? We can report it to the police. I am going to. Eric, if you are going to report that, I would be in trouble more, and I would get exposed. Name of the owner, please. James cut him off. Eric cleared his throat. First, all right. The owner of Lotus is the mighty director of Hanson Empire, Director Kevin Jones Hanson. Director Hanson? Jacinth's uncle? He asked with awe. Yeah, young Mistress Lee's uncle. Why did you ask? Eric felt something unusual when he saw James' sparkling smile. Small world, he muttered, thinking. The young girl he kissed last night had a connection with Hyacinth. What do you mean by small world? Eric asked, bewildered. What did he do last night? Ali, have some meal, then we'll go to the shopping mall later. I will buy all your favorites. Rachel tried to pacify her niece. She was sitting on the edge of her bed while anxiously staring at her. She had locked herself in her room since her mom gave them their punishment. She had been sniffing all day. She curled herself into a ball while staring blankly at the window, avoiding her Aunt Rachel's worried look. I can't, Aunt. My butt still hurts. Mommy hit me twice. It is really painful, she whined as she kicked her duvet. And humiliating, she also whispered as she buried her head in between her knees. Rachel raised her eyebrow at her niece. She was thinking if Maryse was the one who went to the bar and got drunk, she would do more than spanking her daughter's bottom. She might let her do house chores for a month. Is that your only punishment, Cause? I've heard Jacinth received 2 hits, plus house chores, and Ariel will be grounded for 2 months, and also does the dishes after dinner. So, no other schedules after school, she clarified. Alyssa lifted her head and stared at her aunt. Her swollen eyes were dried with tears. Her wine-colored hair that was identical to her mom's was disheveled. She also had some snot coming out of her nostrils. Really, Aunt? She asked in between her sniff. She couldn't believe she had gotten the lightest punishment. Even her brother and Cendric, who were the masterminds behind that bar fiasco, received 3 hits on their buttocks. 6 months grounded, and a year of household chores. You have no idea, but your mom is already lenient to you. If I were your mom, I would do more than spanking your ass, Rachel sternly uttered. Aunt, you are not making me feel better, Alyssa sulked. Okay. I am just telling the truth. Come on now. Get up and let's invite Jacinth and Ariel. I will treat you all tonight. But they are grounded. Uncle Glenn and Uncle Mark will never allow them to leave even just the entrance of their doors. Alyssa was still not convinced. My big brother will never get mad at me. I am his only baby sister, and Mark will never say no to me, Rachel haughtily replied. Alyssa was just staring at her aunt. Really? Their Uncle Glenn couldn't get mad at his younger sister. She wanted some proof. I will wait for you downstairs. Sweetie, look at you. You already look older than me, Rachel jokingly told her, while she also stuck some strands of her hair behind her ear. Alyssa chuckled at her remarks. She got down from her bed and hastily went to the bathroom. I will prepare your clothes. Rachel also rose from her seat. Thank you, Aunt, Alyssa spoke as she peeped through the slightly open door. Ratch, I am disciplining Ariel here. She can't disobey my order, Glenn sternly told his sister. Rachel and Alyssa were sitting on the couch. It was almost dinner, but they couldn't find even a shadow of Ariel. Where could she be? Big brother, I will just treat my nieces tonight. Okay, I am going to the US this week, and consider it as my gift for them, Rachel insisted. She had a big project in the US, and was signed a 6-month contract to finish the project. Alyssa was looking down at the floor the entire talk. She couldn't look her uncle in the eye. Where is my niece anyway? She asked with narrowed eyes. Then, suddenly, Ariel emerged from the dining room doorframe with her clothes soaking wet and barefooted. She was also holding a pool skimmer net. With her looks, everyone could say she was abandoned in the street. Daddy, I am finished cleaning the pool, she uttered in a soft tone, giving Glenn a guilt-stricken scheme. Glenn turned around while sitting on the couch and was shocked when he saw his daughter's look. Even Rachel was dumbstruck. But Alyssa, she was sneering in secret. Way to go, Ariel, she praised her cousin inwardly. Who told you to clean the pool at this hour? Glenn's eyes went wide in anger. How could you do that to your own daughter, big brother? Look at her. Rachel was enraged. She got up from her seat and strode hastily to her niece, who was shivering in cold. Ariel, are you okay? Rachel asked as she gestured to the servant who passed by to bring a towel. I am cold, Aunt Rachel. Daddy told me to clean the pool, but he didn't specify when. She told her in a self-deprecating tone. She even sneezed. Glenn, who was originally mad, felt the needle just pricked his heart with his daughter's pitiful aura. Ariel, what are you thinking? It is late autumn, he exclaimed. I don't want you and Mom to get mad at me. Ariel responded with her head looking down at the floor. Don't you know the implications of getting colds, big brother? I am telling Mark he should teach you. Rachel angrily told him while she took the towel from their servant and wrapped it around Ariel's body. Thanks, Debbie. How long has she been cleaning the pool? Don't be scared, tell me. Madam. That, Debbie couldn't speak. She glanced at Glenn, asking for his permission. How long, Debbie? Glenn asked, rather, and almost jumped to his seat when Ariel sneezed louder. 2 hours, sir, and she was also crying. Debbie confessed. Glenn looked upon the ceiling and took a deep sigh. He raised his hands, showing defeat. He knew his daughter was just fooling him, but what could he do? That is the stuff she learned from Michelle. His own wife. You are your mother's daughter. I give up, he exclaimed as he strode upstairs. Thanks, big brother. I know you still have a soft heart. I won't tell Mom and Dad about this. Rachel even uttered. Take care of them. Rachel, you will pay for the consequences if your nieces would grow up just like you. Glenn gazed at his sister. Rachel was dumbfounded. What could be the problem if they would grow up like her? What do you mean by that? Rachel exclaimed as she lifted her head on the second floor. You are a troublemaker. That is what I meant, Glenn replied as he held the wooden handrails and peeped his head on the first floor. Big brother, Rachel cried out when she shifted her stare back at her niece. She saw the gleam in her eyes. Did you do that on purpose? She asked with narrowed eyes. Sorry. Can we go to the mall now? Ariel admitted. Your father is right. You are Sister Michelle's daughter. I will give you 20 minutes to fix yourself. If you can't beat my time, you can't go with us. I will go get change right away, Aunt. Ariel even saluted her aunt like a soldier and sprinted to her room at once. She is amazing, Alyssa commented when Rachel sat back on the couch. You two deserve more than spanking. This isn't funny. Rachel scolded her niece instead. Alyssa pursed her lips tight when she noticed her aunt was serious. When she glanced at Rachel, she hugged her right away. Thanks, Aunt now. I know you are the strongest in the Lee clan. She sweetly uttered. Promise me, don't do such STVPI'd stuff again next time. We're all worried about you kids. Rachel told her with a warning gaze. Promise, it won't happen again. Alyssa raised her hand like pledging. Sure, she didn't want to do such stuff again. The first reason, this was the first time that she received punishment, and it did hurt her to the max. Second, she was kissed by someone she couldn't remember his face. STVPI'd me. Alyssa reacted inwardly. At Hanson? Department store. A. Do you remember the look of the guy you kissed? Ariel whispered to Alyssa in the fitting room, while she glanced at their aunts who were busy reading a fashion magazine. The guy who kissed me, Ariel, not I kissed. And no, I don't remember his face. It is dark in that area. Alyssa replied while putting on a knitted beige off-shouldered blouse. She was also wearing black skinny jeans and beige ankle boots. She also twirled slowly to see the fitting on each side and her back while Ariel was fitting a one-piece casual dress. What about if you ask Charlie to check the CCTV on that area? Even if it is dark, for sure you can still at least. Aren't you done yet? my beautiful nieces, when Rachel's voice suddenly popped up behind them. Let's talk about this on our GC, okay? Alyssa whispered. Okay, got it. Ariel gave her cousin a thumbs up. We're finished. Aunt Rachel, what do you think? Alyssa then turned around and showed her outfit to her aunt, the same with Ariel. Hyacinth wasn't able to join them for she had already gone back to Townsend that night. Aunt Rach. What do you think? Ariel also asked. Her outfit was a one-piece sleeveless knitted dress, which hem was above the knee and a turtleneck neckline. Pair that with white knee boots, sweetie. You two are really chic. Rachel exclaimed with pride as she got up and checked her niece's outfits. Thank you, Aunt Rachel. The two uttered in unison. Hungry. Let's have a meal now. We're so late for dinner. Let's just have a light snack, okay? Rachel added as they strode to the counter. The sales clerks followed them behind. When they were done paying, they went to a famous coffee shop inside the mall. Aunt Rachel, Ariel, I will just go to the restroom. Alyssa told them upon sitting down. The two just nodded. As she walked to the restroom, she accidentally bumped into someone. And that someone was no other than James, who just went out of the men's toilet. Ops, my bad. Are you okay? James held her elbow right away. I am fine. Thanks. Alyssa sternly replied as she brushed his hand off. Look, I didn't mean it. I really didn't see you. I was talking to someone on my phone when I accidentally bumped Tilda. I didn't tell you to explain, mister. So please, don't block my way. She lifted her head and stared at him. James was stunned, with whom he had just accidentally met. Again, the corner of his lips curled up into a smile while Alyssa narrowed her eyes. PTTF. Alyssa puffed. It made James raise his right eyebrow. Who as a weirdo would wear shades at night? She reacted inwardly. She was talking about him who was wearing dark shades. Is this your first time to see a person wearing shades at night? Your Highness, James smirked. He found her cute looking like a haughty mean princess when she is stern but an adorable girl. When she laughed, Alyssa cleared her throat first before she answered. She raised her chin and her right eyebrow, chest out as she spoke lordly. Well, I say you are the very first human being I saw wearing shades at night. I must say because of that you didn't see me walking here. James' face showed a plastered smirk. His pearly white teeth sparkled brightly under the light. When his smirk was turning to grin, Alyssa slowly curled up her fingers into a hard fist, ready to punch his annoying face. Want to know the reason why I am wearing these? 'Cause I had sore eyes, he explained. It made her move back a bit. What? She knew well that sore eyes were contagious. She kept a 2-meter distance away from him. Her face displayed uneasiness. Sore eyes. She thought. Disgusting. She reacted inwardly while imagining red eye, with lots of eye boogers. But the more she moved back, the more James moved closer. He ambled towards her, making her feel more irritated. Stay back, Alyssa sternly told him. Her magisterial voice made James halt. He was waiting for her next command. How did you get that? She unintentionally asked, although she knew how someone could get that infection. How? Well, I kissed a girl at the back of the bar. James sneered. What? Alyssa exclaimed in anger. Yeah, what is wrong with that? That girl is my girlfriend, he answered while his smirk was getting wider. Alyssa was flabbergasted. She was caught by the thought that James was talking about her. She glanced around, avoiding James' teasing stare. Although he was wearing shades, she was aware that his eyes were glued to her. Nothing is wrong with that. Excuse me, could you step aside? She stood straight like a queen owning the pathway. James stepped aside, giving her a regal parade. He even saluted like he is one of her knights. It made Alyssa frown at him more as she walked past him. I hate you. You are weird. She mumbled good enough for the annoying guy to hear it when she was about to open the toilet door. James spoke again. By the way, the name of the bar is Lotus, and my girlfriend's father is the owner. Alyssa abruptly turned around and glared at him. Her pale pink peach cheeks were turning to dark red, and she could feel the heat reaching her ears. You! She roared as she faced him, but James wasn't finished teasing her yet. He sauntered towards her and moved his sneering lips closer to her red ears. Thanks for the free kiss, baby, he whispered before stealing another peck from her. Hey! Alyssa exclaimed, and before she could smack James, he already dashed like an arrow. She pushed the diamond pendant of her necklace, alarming their security at once. In not less than 5 minutes, 3 robust men arrived in a rush. Young mistress. They reported right away. Find the young guy who... She staggered and paused in the end, making their security guards baffled. She couldn't exactly tell her claim for 2 reasons. First, it would create big trouble on her part if her parents found out. Secondly, she was embarrassed. I mean, have some meals. Take a break for a while. You all work hard, all of you. She smilingly told them, and twitched her lips after. The 3 guards glanced at each other first, before they nodded and bowed at her. When they left, she scolded herself. STVPI'd. Really, Alyssa, can you not think well anymore? James was in haste devouring his sumptuous breakfast, when Eric noticed his action. Young master, no one will take your food. Eat slowly, he reminded his young master right away. You really are a good cook, James replied, rather while he drank the glass of water beside his plate. Thanks. Young master, but I don't intend to get you fat, Eric uttered as he glanced at him while talking. Don't worry, Eric. Even if I am fat, girls will still like me, James jokingly bragged out. You think so? Young master, Eric chuckled. Yes. I think so. 'Cause I have the money and the name, girls love that. He haughtily responded as he raised his chin. Eric scoffed at his expression and sighed after. But you forgot. Your identity is hidden for the meantime, he again reminded, which means those bells will be put to test as to who loves me materially or unconditionally. I was a prince that became a pauper, he muttered in the air. You didn't really become the pauper. Young master, let's say you demoted to a knight. James just got up from his seat and tapped his arm. He winked at him and whispered, Knight? I love that. Gotta go. I will look for my damsel in distress at Marysville. He then strode to the living room, whistling. Eric smilingly followed him while taking a new phone in his pocket. Young master, your grandfather told me to give you this new device. It has GPS in it, and your family's new numbers are already saved on the phone book. James just brushed his hair with his fingers and took the phone from him. He then stood straight in front of Eric and asked, How does the knight look? Very handsome, young master, but you forgot your weapons, pens, and papers. Eric gave him his backpack, which he declined. Ew, Eric, too archaic. No students need those anymore these days. We have phones, he uttered as he winced. The butler had no choice but to submit. He just shook his head while following him at the entrance. Old is gold, but change is permanent, he mumbled while staring at James, who was now revving the engine of his black SUV. His young master even saluted him before he drove off. Careful! Young master, he shouted, of which James responded with a wave. At the university, he didn't go straight to his first class, but he went to the basketball court instead. Upon arriving, he saw the coach training the varsity team at once. They were in the middle of their footwork drills while their coach was yelling at them. Fire your feet, off quicker, boys. James watched them outside of the court for a while. He was smilingly nodding while his hands were resting on the edge of the metal barricade. Nice, he whispered. When the coach noticed that somebody was watching them, he glanced at the entrance, and there he saw James sneering with haughtiness while watching the team practice. "Don't you have class, student?" the coach asked, because his eyes were fixed on the varsity team. He didn't realize that the coach was already in front of him. "Ah, I want to try out for the team, sir," James politely replied. "Try out. Come inside," the coach uttered as he moved the metal barricade sideways, and it created a screeching sound. "We have to put this in the entrance, if not the young girls at Marysville will mob my boys," the coach jokingly uttered, and it made James chuckle. "Did you play basketball before?" The coach continued speaking while he strode towards his team. "James Dean, sir. And yes, I was a varsity player at our school in London," James casually replied, while he glanced at the other players. "London, English?" The coach abruptly halted and faced him. "Mixed, sir. My mom is from Townsend," James responded. "I see." The coach constantly nodded. Then he patted his shoulder. "Welcome to Marysville," he smiling added. "Thank you." He simply replied before they both glanced back at the team practicing. "All right. Here ya, boys. Gather here." Their coach called their attention after a whistle. "Coach, new blood." Ernest, their MVP and called the crowd's favorite, glanced at James while sneering. The other players' stares were also fixed on him while they were gasping. Others were holding their knees while panting. "Yeah, this is James Dean. He is new at our university," their coach responded. "So, you see, we have a sports festival coming, and we'll be competing with the two legendary universities in the country. For our new bloods, show us what you've got." "Ernest, guide them," their coach announced. "Sure, coach. Guys, follow me. Let's see if you can do a simple dunk." Ernest called their 10 new players, while the rest rested on the bleachers. "Hi, I am Ernest. Welcome to the University of Bells." Ernest approached James while the others were beginning to show off. "I am James, the University of Bells?" he asked, feeling amused. "Yeah, 'cause in just 5 minutes, our fans are arriving at the entrance," he meaningfully uttered as he reached him a set of basketball uniforms. "The dressing room is that way," he added. "Thanks." James smiled while accepting the uniform and strode to the room at the corner. After 5 minutes, he was stunned when he saw what the coach and Ernest were talking about a while ago. The loud thump of the balls was now dominated by the wooing and giggling of some young girls at the entrance. "James, your turn!" Ernest exclaimed while sneering. When James took the ball from him, Ernest whispered something. "Told ya, the University of the Bells." "Yeah, right," James sneered back while shaking his head. As he began dribbling the ball, Ernest was nodding with satisfaction. The girls were also watching him with astonishment. "Go, Dean! Show us what you've got!" Ernest exclaimed when James began to speed up. When James jumped high into the air and pushed the ball through the basket with a sharp downward motion, everyone held their breaths, including their coach. When he perfectly landed on the hard maple floor, it was only Ernest who exclaimed in pride. Everyone was bewitched by his amazing move. "That is a perfect tomahawk dunk." Wet. After their practice, he got into the team. Their coach briefly explained all of the rules first before he dismissed their players. "See you next time, Dean." Ernest smiled as he patted his shoulder. "You, too," James simply replied. He was about to go to his third period when he caught a glimpse of someone he knew sitting on one of the bleachers. "Hyacinth Lee." He called her name, which made the preoccupied teens startled. "James, hey, it is you." They both smiled. "Are you a student here?" Hyacinth asked. "Yes, I am. I just arrived last Sunday." "It is a long story," James replied. "Well, it is wonderful to see you. I have to go back to class now. I am late," Hyacinth politely uttered. Can I get your new number? I was calling you, but I think you changed your number, James said while taking his phone from his pocket. After saving Hyacinth's number, he whistled while striding to his next class. A day you, see, went in. Meanwhile, at Merriam University, Alyssa had been staring blankly on the projector screen while their professor was explaining their lesson. She propped her chin with her elbow on her desk. Her mind was flying all the way back to what happened to her at their department store and bar. You've got the nerve to steal a kiss from me. I will make you regret those nights that we accidentally met. She was murmuring while gnashing her teeth, till her classmate nudged her elbow. She glanced at her side and noticed that everyone was already staring at her. Our professor just asked you a question, her classmate whispered. Huh? She was flabbergasted. How long had her mind been wandering around? She shifted her gawk at their professor, whom she thought looked like her mom when Lynette punished them. Big rims of thick glasses, hair in a bun, outdated blazer and brown pencil-cut skirt, and a beige turtleneck knitted sweater. Plus, a raised right eyebrow and a deep sigh that she could definitely hear up to her seat. Miss Hanson, their professor exclaimed. Yes, Mrs. Burton. She hastily rose from her seat and stood straight. You are a woman, but you sound like my dad, she reacted inwardly while twitching her lips. Her classmates were now watching them with amusement. For the first time, their ace in the class was going to be scolded. For your information, Miss Hanson, I am still Miss. Keep that in mind. Miss Burton corrected as she picked a stick on her desk and ambled towards Alyssa. The click-clacking of her brown knee boots was nothing compared to the sound of the stick as she hit it on her palm. Alyssa couldn't help but mumble. She saw the same kind from her most loving mom just last week. My apologies, Miss Burton, Alyssa politely uttered as she bowed her head. I will accept your apology if you can answer my question. Now, what is the objective of Taylor's theorem? Miss Burton asked with confidence. She noticed Alyssa wasn't paying attention to the class a while ago, so she thought she couldn't answer her question. This was by far the first time she saw the heiress of Hanson Empire look cryptic. However, seriously, she asked me that. Alyssa narrowed her blue ocean almond eyes to her teacher while speaking in her thoughts. Miss Hanson, if you can't answer my simple question, you have to go to detention, Miss Burton exclaimed. It made the class rowdy while waiting for the next scene. Alyssa cleared her throat first, while tucking some strands of her wine-colored hair, which was similar to Lynette, before she gave an eloquent, superb answer. Taylor's theorem gives an approximation of a k times differentiable function around a given point by a polynomial of degree k, called the kth order Taylor polynomial. They were awestruck with her delivery that even the professor who thought she couldn't respond was tongue-tied, and even before they could react, Alyssa continued explaining their lesson that some weren't even tackled yet. Miss Hanson, very good. You can take your seat, Miss Burton had to stop her, for she might not be able to teach the other topics anymore. Alyssa had already discussed them in the class. Thank you, Miss Burton, Alyssa respectfully replied. As she sat down, her classmates were still dumbstruck. Their admiration for her intelligence increased even more. Although some envied and were upset with her, she paid no heed. She was not a friendly type. She loved being alone and was only comfortable being with her cousins and their friends, which was why no boys had dared to court her. Aside from her sparkling name as the daughter of two prominent personalities, she was just like her twin brother, aloof and icy cold. After their class, she strode straight to the parking, where Isaac, her own bodyguard and driver, was already waiting. Young mistress, young master said, we can go home first, Isaac uttered as he opened the backseat door. Thank you, Isaac. Did you have your snack? Alyssa asked while buckling up. Yes, young mistress. I had bread and coffee at the canteen a while ago. Isaac smilingly replied. Isaac admired his master's characters. All of them, including the Lees, respect and treat their staff and workers as their own family. They never failed to ask about their situation like a simple, "How are you today?" or "Don't forget your meal." As he revved the engine, Alyssa glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Isaac, did Cendric pick Ariel a while ago?" Alyssa asked. "Ah, yes, young mistress. They said they're going to watch a movie." Isaac responded. "I don't want to go home yet. Bring me to the mall for a while. I will just buy something." She then uttered. Isaac took a U-turn and drove the Hansons' Maybach to their department store. But Alyssa wasn't really going to buy something. As they halted in the parking lot, she hurriedly got off and went straight to the technical room. When their maintenance and security saw her, they bowed right away. Wilfred was also present. "Good evening. Can you help me search for a certain clip? This is the date and time," Alyssa smilingly told them. "Sure, young mistress. But why do you want to see this clip?" Wilfred asked, wondering. "It is a secret, Wilfred. And can you keep this to everyone?" she also whispered. Her eyes were begging. Wilfred, who had been with the Hansons for a long time, understood what she meant. He narrowed his eyes at his young boss and sternly stared at her. "Please," Alyssa begged even more while clasping her hands and rubbing them together. Wilfred let out a light chuckle at his adorable gesture. He glanced at the other officers and signaled them to leave. "Thank you," Alyssa heaved when it was now just the two of them, but was also mortified when he saw Wilfred's shocking expression. His wide eyes were fixed on the monitor of the CCTV while his mouth was slightly opened. "Young mistress, who is that guy?" he exclaimed in anger. "Wilfred, don't tell Daddy. You promised." She was now on the verge of crying. "I can't just be quiet. It is my job to protect you and your brother. That guy kissed you in this store, in my watch." Wilfred was now frantically exclaiming like Alyssa was his younger sister or daughter. "It was just a peck on the cheek, you see. It is not even a second." "Just a slight second," Alyssa was explaining like a kid. At their university a while ago she was articulate, but now she was staggering. Wilfred was even gasping in anger. He stared deeply at the guy in shades on CCTV, memorizing his features. He even took a copy of the video and saved it on his phone. "What are you doing?" Alyssa was now panicking that she unintentionally held Wilfred's arm. "I am not telling the director, but I will find this boy who kissed you." "You should have told us the truth," Wilfred scolded her. Alyssa was rendered speechless. She had to admit she felt panicked for the boy. "You are doomed." At the gym, while the varsity players continued practicing, their coach blew his whistle while he clapped his hands. "All right, boys, rest a bit. I've something to announce," he uttered loudly, drawing the attention of the team. They all stopped playing, including James and Ernest, and hurried to their coach's direction. "What is it, Coach Ernest?" their team captain asked, gasping while his hands were on his knees. James was beside him, also panting while his hands were on his waist. "Sportsfest will be next week. I am going to divide the team in a half and assign your leaders. Ernest, you lead 5 seniors and 5 newbies. You'll play the first half," their coach ordered. "Yes, coach." He obeyed right away. He nudged James to go with him, but their coach stopped him. They were all stunned when their coach said something. "Ernest and James will be your leaders. So James, the remaining 10 players, you must train them. Teach us new tricks that you learned in London." "Yeah, good decision, coach," Ernest and the rest uttered in chorus while James just constantly nodded while everyone surrounded him. "All right, kids, wrap it up. See you tomorrow," their coach uttered while he glanced at his wristwatch. It was already 6 in the evening. James and the rest took a shower at the gym just behind their dressing room. After washing up, he took the towel from the rack and covered his lower part before he went out of the shower room. He glanced around as the smoke of the steaming water blurred his eyes. His teammates were not finished yet. He strode to his locker while wiping his hair with a small towel and took his clothes. After changing, he tossed the wet towels in the hamper and turned around. "Bye guys, see you tomorrow," he called in a loud voice and left. At the parking lot, he lit his headlights while whistling when somebody tapped his shoulder. "James Dean!" Then a stern voice came next. He slowly veered around, displaying a serious look, trying to scare whoever that man knew his name. Then, with an equal tone, he also asked, "How'd you know my name?" "You don't need to know. I am here to avenge someone." The man whom he thought would be in his late 20s lordly uttered. James' eyes narrowed as he stared at him. He also secretly glanced behind him, scanning if he was not alone. "Don't worry, kid. I am not with a group. I came here alone." The left corner of his lips curled up while his eyes were fixed on him. "Avenge someone. I don't remember hitting someone in the past," he told the man while twitching his lips. He remembered he just beat 3 drunk men at the bar about weeks ago. "I am not talking about that. I am talking about the girl you kissed," the man firmly replied. James raised his right eyebrow upon hearing what he said. "The girl I kissed," he thought. Then a sneer suddenly emerged on his stern face. "You are not the director of Hanson Empire," James mockingly uttered. It made the man's eyes squint. "Don't tell me you are her boyfriend," he also added while rubbing his chin. This time, the man's stern look became fierce. So he knew whom he kissed, he thought. He grabbed James' collar with one hand and sternly whispered at him. "Follow me, James Dean, if you don't want me to expose your true identity." Firm, quick but concise, he left, James rooted on his spot. When he drove past James, he rolled down the window and glared at him. That is an indication that he was not playing around. James just shrugged off while he opened his car and revved the engine. He followed the black SUV that had the same model and color as his car. As the man's car turned left, he also did. When it stopped at the seaside, he also halted. James' saunters were calm, while the man's steps were heavy. As they both reached the middle of the seashore, they faced each other. The man's stance was sizing him up, while James was getting annoyed. It was late autumn. The sea breeze was slapping his face. It was 6 in the evening. He was exhausted and starving. What did this man want? "You dared to steal a kiss from a young girl. That is molestation." "Boy," the man exclaimed. James squinted his eyes on him. He couldn't seem to decipher what he meant. "First of all, she is not a young girl. She is a young woman," he sternly corrected. "You." The man was about to attack him when James raised his palm. "Wait. I am not done yet. Secondly, she told me to do that." The man's boiling point had reached its peak with his last sentence. "What did you say?" he roared at him. "Well, technically not exactly like that, but she gave me an option to kiss her," he uttered while twitching his lips. When, suddenly, "Hey! What is your problem?" James exclaimed while dodging the man's attack. The man gave him a right uppercut, but James dodged it by doing a sidestep. He tried to kick him, but James just slapped his leg. When the man noticed he was well trained, he stopped and deeply stared at him. "Your old man taught you well," he uttered. It made James flabbergasted. "Who are you?" he asked, feeling enraged. "No need to know, but listen to me. Stay away from her. Your life is complicated, and it might danger her," the man firmly told him. James' brows furrowed as it formed thin lines, shouting, "What the heck do you mean? You have serious problems with your own blood. That is why you are in Townsend. Don't make me tell a story, but I will give you a hint. Your dad is in a wheelchair now." How do you know about that? James sternly asked while gasping. Who the heck are you? He yelled out, but the man took something in his pocket instead. He tossed the stuff on him. Don't dare to throw away that phone. We will contact each other from that device from now on. Why would I listen to you? You must be one of Frank's men. FVCKU. I am gonna kill you now. He was already frantic while trying to hit the man, but he just held his hand and twisted it as he put them both behind him, gripping them tightly. James tried to struggle, but the man just restrained his movement. Then he moved his head closer and whispered in his ears. Listen well, kid. I am not your friend, not your enemy either. I can protect you from your enemies. I don't need your seeking protection. Release me and let's fight. James roared either, cutting the man's sentence off. You need my help, moron, but you have to listen to what I say. Stay away from the director's daughter if you don't want anything bad to happen to her. You should settle your family first. Got it. The man uttered while gnashing his teeth. James pondered on what he said and calmed down for a moment. When the man noticed he was no longer struggling, he asked again as he gripped his wrists harder. It made James irked in pain. Got it? Yeah, I got it. Whatever. James deeply sighed as his sign of defeat. When the man released his hands, he massaged his reddish wrists and turned around. Why are you doing this? He asked, feeling confused. His stare was sharp. It could cut anyone to pieces. But the man just tapped his shoulder while giving him a sneer. You will find out everything when the right time comes. Go to your car now. Someone has been watching us from afar. The man uttered as he glanced at the lighthouse. When James followed his gaze, he was also stunned. There were strange movements inside of the lighthouse around 100 m away from where they were standing. They could totally see it from the window. Remember what I told you, the man uttered as he gestured to him to get in his car. James followed right away. When he left, the man strode to his car and drove off. James got out of his black SUV in the university parking lot. His Soin character still flowed in his action, no matter how he hid it. Though he is wearing a simple black knitted sweater and a beige buttonless cardigan, matching with rugged jeans and simple white trainers, the girls couldn't help but admire his physique. He put his shades on his head as he glanced around. He saw and heard the giggles of the girls while he was passing by. Some waved at him. Some greeted him with a smile. Hello, James. Hi, Dean. Hello, ladies. As gentleman as he was, he also greeted them back while wearing his killer smile. How did they know my name? He asked inwardly while striding at the coffee shop inside of the university. He glanced at his wristwatch that struck 8, still early, he thought. Since his first class was at 9 and they didn't have practice today, he could still get himself a cup of his favorite brew, macchiato. He was about to push the sliding door button when he caught a glimpse of someone he knew. He strode towards the person whom he thought was wandering around like a lost ghost. Hey, Jacinth. James, you again! Hyacinth was thrilled to see her childhood friend. Where are you going? James asked, while he tucked some strands of her hair behind her earlobe. Nowhere. I mean, we have swimming today, but I don't feel like attending. Hyacinth shrugged off her shoulders while replying. Great, I was supposed to have some coffee. Wanna join me? James asked as he immediately held her hand. My hand, Mr. Dean. Hyacinth reminded him while raising her left eyebrow. We've been friends for a long time. What are you thinking? James sneered as he winked. Hyacinth just smiled while shaking her head as they both strode to the cafeteria. When they found a seat, James pulled the chair and asked her what drinks would she like. Thanks, Mr. Dean. Mocha latte, please, Hyacinth responded. After a few minutes, their 2 cups of mocha latte and macchiato were served along with a cube of blueberry cake for the young lady. Oh, you still know my favorite. That is wonderful. But I gotta say, I have a new favorite now. Hyacinth uttered while taking a slice of the cake. James just smiled at her. He suddenly remembered her cousin whom he had kissed twice. He couldn't tell her about it. The man's statement was keeping him befuddled. Guess, have to hide that too for now, he thought. When Hyacinth noticed him just staring at her, she gently tapped the table. He was startled, but also smiled and instantly got an alibi to conceal his thoughts. Guess what? I am joining the basketball team for the sports festival. It will really uplift my spirit more if you will come and watch, James uttered, giving Hyacinth a guilt-stricken look. You don't need to make me feel guilty. All right, for our friendship's sake, I will watch your game, Hyacinth chuckled. Promise, cross your heart, hope to die. James' eyes sparkled. I promise, but I will not cross my heart and hope to die. She laughed at his weird gesture. Then suddenly, a man's voice sprang behind her. Jacinth. James, who saw the man's dark expression, asked Hyacinth at once. He could see her gladness was gone. Do you know him? Yes, I know him. Hyacinth got up and turned around, staring at the man. When they were about to leave, James stopped them. Excuse me, where are you taking her? He sternly asked as he got up from his seat. Hyacinth was his childhood crush, and he could admit first love. But since he could notice that Hyacinth's feelings for him were purely platonic, he gave up on pursuing her even before Hyacinth went back to Brent. James, this is Melvin, her boyfriend. The man immediately cut in. James was lost for words. He squinted his eyes on the young lady whom he had courted for years. She just transferred that semester and she already had a boyfriend. Jacinth, is that true? His eyes were asking a clarification. Yes, it is true. Melvin, this is James. He was my classmate in London, and he is also a transferee at Marysville. Hyacinth explained as she held his hand tight. Hey, thanks for treating my girlfriend, Melvin uttered in a jealous tone. James was still gawking at them when he heard his best friend's voice. Bye, James. See you around. Hyacinth smiled. Melvin, need to dig something about you. How did you get Jacinth's sweet yes? He muttered in his thoughts while following the two with his nonplussed gaze. He had to admit, as a man, his pride was somewhat wounded. I am just a mere human. I also have feelings. He also added before he stood up and left the cafeteria. Quent, Wes. At the same time in Merriam University, Alyssa was practicing swimming when Ariel came to visit. She was doing a freestyle stroke alone on the 50m lap pool when she saw her cousin clapping while watching her. She stopped at the edge at once and removed her goggles. Why are you here? She asked right away. It is almost 9. Aren't you going to your class? Ariel asked while giving her a towel rather. Alyssa immediately got out of the pool and took the towel from her cousin. They both strode to the dressing while Alyssa was speaking. I am exempted with my marketing class this month's lesson. The professor told me to concentrate on field study and share my knowledge with the class next month. Field study? Wow, I envy you. I wish my prof would also tell me to do that. I want to get out of my boring classes for a while. Ariel exclaimed with envy. Alyssa just smiled before she left her in the locker room and strode to one of the shower cubicles. She turned on the valve and lifted her head, welcoming the steaming water pouring all over her body. Sister, can you not really recall a little bit of something from the guy who kissed you? I am really curious. Ariel's voice came out louder for she was outside of the shower room. I will speak with you about that later. Okay. Alyssa replied loudly, while her eyes were shut, feeling the soothing effect of the hot water on her nerves and muscles. Also, while thinking about the guy her cousin just dragged to her mind. Damn it, Ariel. I wanna forget him. She couldn't help but scold her cousin inwardly. Because of Ariel's presence, her supposed to be an hour shower was cut in half or so. She hurriedly went out and fixed herself in the changing room. As she strode back to her locker, Ariel was listening to music with her earphones. She didn't notice Alyssa in front of her. "Hey, let's go," Alyssa uttered as she removed the earphone from her ear. "Oh, so, about the guy, is he tall?" she asked, beaming. Like Arvin and Cendric," Alyssa replied as she narrowed her eyes. "Is he fat or has a good figure?" Ariel couldn't be controlled. Alyssa thought for a while. Then she halted and faced her cousin. "I think good figure, and he is good at martial arts." Alyssa's lips curled up upon recalling how James fought those 3 intoxicated men. "I think we should go back to Lotus," Ariel whispered, hinting at something. "Ariel, you have class, focus on that. What do you mean, go back there?" Alyssa annoyingly chased her cousin away at once, but the latter just giggled at her. She even teased her before she sprinted away. "I think you like him, Kaz. You are blushing. Ariel, come back here. Dean's mansion. In London. Give me an update on that conceited self-titled heir," Harry, Frank condescendingly uttered to his assistant. They were in his study room on the north side of the mansion. The south area was where James Dean's family live. In the middle was the former senator's residence. Frank's study room was soundproof, similar to Dave's. The Willies had their own living room and dining room, and they seldom had meals with the senator and James' family. They were only forced to have dinner with them if his wife was at the mansion. "Sir, it is positive. He is in Townsend, and he studies at Marysville University. He has some secret bodyguards following him 24/7. It is the former senator's command," Harry reported. It made Frank grasp the documents in front of him and crumpled them into pieces. No wonder his men couldn't get close to him, he thought. "All right, since these FEC-king assholes have a clue, let's keep a distance for a while. Let that arrogant heir enjoy his teenager's life. Besides, his father is already useless to run their company. In just a few snap, that giant business will be mine," Frank uttered in a haughty and confident tone while rubbing his chin. Harry was also sneering. His boss was totally the master of treachery, he thought. He was the mastermind in Dave's shooting, but he remained quiet and calm. Aside from that, he was staying on one roof with the person he just shot. The Deans might have had some doubts about them, but they had no evidence, hence they couldn't just pin the Willies down. "By the way, sir, our informant from the east just called a while ago. The packages are arriving tomorrow at dawn. I already ordered our men to secure the area," Harry suddenly remembered. "Good job. Let's leave in secret. My wife just arrived this afternoon. She might look for me at dinner." Frank told him while glancing at his wristwatch. "Yes, sir. I will prepare the props then," Harry replied before he got up and left hurriedly the study room. Frank immediately followed. They were about to open the wide entrance door when Hallie's domineering voice rose behind them. "Frank, where are you going?" "Dad's calling us for dinner. Dave has just been discharged from the hospital. Aren't you joining? Charles and Kath are now in the dining room. You are the only one we're waiting for, Frank." Her long-winded talks irritated his ears that he had to shake his head to calm his nerve. If not, he might have yelled at his wife. He sighed first before he turned around. Harry was also pursing his lips tight while he looked down at the floor. "The dragon is here," he commented inwardly. "Dear, something came up at the company. Harry and I need to fix it quickly, if not we will lose our client's trust." He replied with a wry smile. "Let Harry handle it. You have 3 assistants working with you. Are they all useless?" Hallie annoyingly told him. "Come on now. Dad's waiting for us." She also uttered as she turned around. "But dear, my assistants need my guidance for Tilda." "I won't repeat what I already said, Frank." Hallie cut him off with her loud and superior voice. Even Harry was startled. He glanced at his boss, whose face turned dim. He could see Frank was controlling himself to slap or strangle the woman in front of him. When Frank glanced at him, he nodded in defeat. "Take care of everything. I will be there after dinner," he whispered at Harry, but good enough for Hallie to hear it. "No, Harry. Your boss won't leave this house tonight." She gazed at him, then shifted her terrifying stare at her husband. "I just arrived from Milan. You want to swamp your time with your work instead of being with me? What kind of husband are you?" She scolded him right in an instant. It made Harry dumbstruck. It made Frank feel hot under the collar. Till their butler named Pitt came saving the two men for that night. "Sir, madam, your father is already calling you." Hallie frowned at her husband, more before she marched to the dining room, leaving Frank and Harry at the entrance door. "Sir," Harry gently asked, "I can't accompany you tonight, Harry, but keep me posted," Frank sternly told him before he followed his wife to the grand dining room. Harry shook his head with annoyance. He couldn't believe his treacherous boss could not dominate his wife. Now, he had to deal with the packages alone, hoping nothing would go wrong. He left the mansion, exasperated. In the dining room, they were welcomed by a deep stare from Leonardo. "Finally, we can eat. Pitt, boil the soup. It has gotten cold," he condescendingly ordered. "Yes, sir." Pitt bowed and took the big bowl in the middle before the rest could speak. "Dad, Frank was talking to Harry a while ago. There is just a little problem at the company. That is why he tilde. Do you need more money for your pathetic business, Frank?" Leonardo cut his daughter off. His voice escalated the whole dining room. It made Frank more aggrieved. He threw his father-in-law a dagger stare while the latter focused on his food. "Dad, I think Frank doesn't need more funds, right, dear?" Hallie nudged her husband. She could see he was furious, but he was just hiding it. When she glanced at Dave and Faye, their eyes met. There was a mixture of both animosity and vigilance, something that she couldn't grasp. Were they upset with Frank? No, based on their sharp stares, they weren't just upset. They were enraged. "Is that so? What are you two waiting for then?" Leonardo nonchalantly told the two who were still standing. Hallie took her seat first before Frank sat beside her. This was his position in the dining room. He was not allowed to speak, not unless Leonardo would ask. Even so, he was always cut in if Hallie would speak on his behalf. He was a complete dog in the mansion. "So, Daddy, how is the investigation on Dave's case?" Hallie suddenly asked in the middle of their quiet meal. Their busy gazes were shifted to her, including Charles' curious stare and Kath's baffled look. "What is Mommy thinking, asking such questions about our enemy?" their children asked internally. "Time will come. The mastermind will come out. No need to haste. Let that idiot enjoy being free. Right, Frank?" Leonardo mockingly asked, without glancing at his son-in-law. Frank, who was looking down at his food, the entire meal hastily lifted his head and glanced at his father-in-law. His eyes were asking, what did he mean? If they're gonna catch him, not in front of his whole family and totally not in front of their servants. The Deans had still a reputation to take care of. When Leonardo didn't say anything anymore, he collected his courage to ask, "Dad, what do you mean by that?" "Hump!" Dave scoffed instead while staring straight at his brother-in-law. Frank slowly glanced at him. Charles followed, including Kath. Hallie and Faye were observing in secret. Leonardo didn't lift his head, but his glare was glued to his daughter's family. "Are you insinuating something, brother-in-law?" Frank lordly asked. "Why President Willies? Were you struck by a lightning by my simple reaction?" Dave scornfully replied, "Uncle Dave, don't you think that is unfair for my father? Are you suspecting him for the incident that happened to you?" Charles suddenly butted in while glaring at his uncle. "Charles, what do you mean by that?" This time Hallie couldn't help but to break in. "You are not allowed to talk if I didn't tell you, Charles. Don't you forget the rules on my property." when Leonardo's roar startled all of them. But Grandpa, I am also a member of this family, therefore I have. Enough! His yell was accompanied by a loud fist slam. It made all of the people eating zip their lips tight. Frank, if you can't discipline your son, you can leave my mansion at once, Leonardo exclaimed before he got up and left the dining room. Charles, who was extremely abashed by what happened, rose from his seat and strode towards his room. He slammed the door and locked the knob. At the same time, Frank glared at all of them first before he also stood up and strode to his study room. He called Harry right away. Pick me up. I am going to check the packages. In the dining room, Kath was gasping in anger with how their grandfather treated her father and her older brother. She dropped the cutlery on the table and wiped her mouth with a napkin. I am done eating, she harshly uttered and left the dining room. She called her boyfriend at once. Get me out of here. When it was just the three left, Hallie asked Dave a series of questions. Does Frank have something to do with your? She couldn't describe the fitted words, especially when she glanced at Dave's wheelchair. It is a suspicion, Hallie. We have no evidence yet, Faye replied. Hallie felt steaming water just poured all over her body with what she just heard. She had no idea that her own family was in upheaval and on the brink of slaughtering each other. Such a prestigious dinner we have, she muttered while staring at the sumptuous meal served on the long table. Meanwhile, in Brent, at Merriam University limousine bus, the players were joyfully chatting while they're waiting for their leader. They're going to Marysville University that day. Their sports day had come, and the students were going to compete with the other universities, which included Firstville University, the oldest school in the country. The Merriam players were being led by Alyssa, as she got on the bus and stood in front while checking the names of their players. The rest sat straight while their eyes and ears were fixed on her. For those who aren't here yet, sorry to say, but you have to take the public bus or a cab going to Marysville, or you can ask your dad to bring you there. Merriam Warriors don't tolerate tardiness, Alyssa authoritatively announced. Oh, come on, young Mistress Hanson, this isn't the Hanson Empire. We're not employees yet, we're still students. Right, dude? Kyle from the basketball team spouted while winking at her and nudging at the other student beside him. Alyssa just raised her right eyebrow. Some mannerisms she got from her dad when the latter was mad. Ariel, who was sitting in front, glanced over her shoulder, giving Kyle a sharp stare. Arvin and Cendric, who were sitting beside each other, also warned Kyle with their glare. But what Alyssa responded to the conceited dude put him to his place at once. Mr. Kyle Arson, from Arson Household. The only child of CEO Dustin Arson of DG Infotech. What an irony that your logo says Fast and Furious, wherein the only air is like a snail. The rest burst out laughing while Kyle was rooted in his seat. His mouth was hung open for quite a while till Arvin nudged him with his words, defending his twin sister. You might want to close your filthy mouth. Don't stink the whole bus. When Arvin's voice engulfed the whole space, they quieted right away. The twins' auras absolutely terrifying, they thought. Louis, let's go, Alyssa gently told the driver as he revved the engine. It would only take them an hour to go to Townsend, so they still had plenty of time to rest or chat. After about a few minutes, the players were starting to get rowdy again. Alyssa didn't mind the noisy atmosphere anymore, for she was also swamped with their schedules at Sports Fest. I can't wait to see Sister Jacinth and her boyfriend. How about let's ask them to have some snacks at Hope Bakery? Ariel uttered while glancing around. Sure, we can ask them about that. By the way, you have a skating competition in the afternoon. Alyssa responded while checking her lists. Okay. Got it. Ariel simply replied before she glanced at Cendric, who was sitting by the aisle. Baby, you can't watch me on my first game. You also have a game that time, right? She uttered while sulking. For you. I will. Your cousin can make an alibi for me, Cendric told her while winking. The twins, who were quietly listening, grimaced at them while shaking their heads. Too much of something is bad enough, Alyssa mumbled while she went back on checking her schoolmates' lists. Second, the motion, Arvin seconded while staring ahead. You two will eat your words once you fall in love, Cendric rebutted. Or maybe once you experienced being kissed. He even added, oh, someone here already experienced that. But too bad she can't remember the HMMP, when suddenly, Ariel's sentence was cut off. Alyssa clamped her mouth tight with her hand, while glaring at her. What was that? Arvin furrowed his brows at the two who were both struggling. Nothing, Alyssa replied while twitching her lips. She was trying to hide that incident, but this chatty cousin of hers was also trying to expose her. However, your twin sister has been kissed on the cheek when we were at your bar, Cendric suddenly and nonchalantly disclosed. Cendric, what? The twins both exclaimed. It made the crowded people in the bus glance at them. But Cendric just shrugged his shoulders off. Sorry, sister. You didn't tell us not to tell Big Brother Arvin, Ariel uttered while slowly shrinking on her seat. Alyssa warned the two, with her sharp gaze, while avoiding her twin brother's condemnatory stare. Let's wait till we get to Marysville, Ali, Arvin whispered. Hate you both, Alyssa whispered back, referring to Cendric and Ariel, but the two just smiled at each other. When they arrived at Marysville, the students in that university welcomed them with banners and flowers, the same as how they welcomed the Firstville University students who just arrived 5 minutes earlier than them. While the students of every university were getting off the buses, a black SUV happened to pass by going to the parking lot. He caught a glimpse of someone whose stance was striking to everyone. He smiled upon seeing the beauty standing lordly in front of the university's main gate. So, she is from Merriam University and an athlete, too. Great, James whispered in the air while he drove inside the campus. He parked his car just beside the reserved slots for the buses. He stayed inside for a while waiting for someone. He was glancing at the outside mirror while tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. When he saw the person he is waiting for, he casually got off and took his gym bag in the trunk. Alyssa, who was striding to the parked bus, halted when she seemed to see a figure she had been hunting for almost 2 weeks now. Especially that person was wearing the same shades he wore at their department store. Him, she whispered. Huh? Who? Ariel asked while squinting her eyes. Huh? Nothing. You guys go ahead. I forgot my lists in the bus, she uttered, and before the rest could react, she already strode out. In front of the bus, she immediately blocked James, who at that moment pretended to be seeing her. Just now. Hey! Alyssa angrily exclaimed. Hey! James asked with furrowed brows but a hidden smirk. Then he smiled after. A smile that is aching to smack. Hey! You? My baby! He even whispered. Out of nowhere, Alyssa just suddenly lifted her right leg and harshly hit his groin, while her dagger stare was thrown on him. Ouch! What is that for? James reacted violently while bending his body. His hands were covering his front parts, while his knees were bent together and his feet were apart. It was a good thing. The students and visitors were already at the covered court, waiting for the start of the cheering competition. If not, James would have been the center of attraction ... in a peculiar way. You dared to ask. You think I can't recognize you? Alyssa was gritting her teeth while she spoke to him. When James heard her reason, he slowly stood straight, still irking in pain. Then he smiled charmingly at the roaring tigress in front of him. So, you are from Merriam University. Too bad. I don't study there. How I wish I could transfer tomorrow so that I could see you always. He began teasing her again. His eyebrows were moving up and down behind those dark shades. It made Alyssa upset even more. She stepped forward with her chin up and chest out, leveling his height, but James was still 5 inches taller than her. "Next time you kiss me again, I will smack your face." She stressed out onto his sneering look. "Why? Are you looking forward to it?" James jeered even more. Alyssa was beyond belief with his way of reasoning. This was so far her first time to encounter such a person. She took a deep sigh and shut her eyes as she counted in her mind to calm her nerves. Too early for a bad day, she thought. 32-1. I guess you are really waiting for it. James took advantage of her again before he disappeared like dust in the wind. "Asshole," Alyssa cried out. Alyssa stayed on the bus for a while, trying to cool down when her phone rang. It was her twin brother. "Where are you? The ceremony is about to start. Coach Vans is looking for you. I am on the bus." "Wait, I will be there in a few minutes," Alyssa replied. "Okay, I will tell your coach you are coming," Arvin uttered before he hung up. "A-hole, bastard jerk." Alyssa was grumbling while she brushed her wine-colored hair with her fingers. "You'll never ruin my day, nor break me. I will break you instead. Next time, I will break your legs." She kept on muttering that even the driver who was about to get on the bus halted in his steps. "Young Mistress Hanson, why are you still here?" Louis asked, confused. "Huh? I just took this clipboard. I forgot a while ago." "Louis, go get yourself some snacks. Just tell them Dad's name," she responded, trying to channel Louis's baffled attention into something. "I just had coffee, young mistress, but I can save that for my lunch later." Louis smilingly responded. "That is great. See you later, Louis. Bye." Alyssa hastily got off the bus, leaving the driver still dumbstruck. Meanwhile, in the pine tree park at the back of the covered court, James was strolling alone while he was on the phone. His gym bag was hanging on his right shoulder, and his hand was in his pocket. "What do you want?" he annoyingly asked the man he met a week ago. "You did again," the man sternly replied. James could feel he was upset, for he could also hear his gnashing teeth. He glanced around thinking the man was hiding somewhere behind the bushes or tree trunks, but all he could see were squirrels, and all he could hear was the wind blow. "You've been watching me." James was also equally enraged. What he hated the most, someone playing hide and seek with him. He never liked that game. Not even an inch. "Let me just juggle your head, boy. Stay away from her. Not until you are strong enough to protect her, then." "I will leave you alone," the man responded with intensity. James' eyes narrowed as he stopped and leaned on the tree trunk. His eyes were fixed on the wide horizon ahead of him. Since Marysville was situated on high ground, he could totally level his height from some residential places. He could see their roofs and the second floors of their houses. "Protect her. I never told you to protect her. I don't have the intention to do that." James reacted right away. "We'll see about that. For now, just follow me," the man uttered. "You know what? You are just wasting my time, so I am hanging up now." "You don't hang up on me, James Dean," the man arrogantly told him. It made him more enraged. "By the way, your uncle knows you are in Townsend, and get rid of your car. Do not drive that again. There is a new car reserved for you in Thomas Car Center in Brent. Just tell them my name." "What do you mean?" James felt he didn't absorb everything the man told him, that he was just gawking. "I don't exactly repeat my words, boy. Get used to that. I will send you my name." Before James could say anything, the man already hung up. Before he could put his phone in his pocket, a message notification arrived. "Eagle Eye." He squinted. "Ah, yo. In London. These are all from different parts of the world, sir. We paid a hefty price just to bring them here, their so-called land of their promise." Harry told Frank while the latter scanned the 20 women one by one. This was just one of Frank's illegal activities. women smuggling. They picked up women from different countries and convinced them to go with them. They would promise them a stable job abroad, a good income, and good fortune. These women, once their itching feet landed the seaport, would either be assigned to different kinds of jobs such as staff at casinos, servers at the bars or clubs, or if you had the talent in dancing, then you would be assigned to either wear a two-piece or strip. If you wanted a higher income, you could do extra service. But mostly, they were sometimes assigned to be slaves to well-off families. Good job, you will receive your bonus earlier. Frank sneered with satisfaction while he tapped Harry's shoulder. Thank you, sir. The rest of his men replied with a bow. Harry, get me one of those and bring it to my room. He also whispered before he went to his car that was driven by his bodyguard, our man. Right away, President. Harry obeyed and strode to the young women lined in rows at once. He stopped in front of a young innocent woman who was looking down at the cold ground the entire talk. He pinched her chin hard and forced her to look at him. He noticed she was trembling. Are you ready to work at the biggest casino in the country? Harry arrogantly asked. Why? Yes, sir. The young lady hesitantly replied. Her face showed fear as she gripped the hem of her shirt tight, looking for strength. Harry smirked at her blushing aura. Obviously. This one's pure, he thought. Then prove your worth to our boss. Follow me, Hazel, he commanded after. Harry already took their personal information even before they were chosen, just in case one of them was a spy. They were always vigilant. Even the former senator had no idea about his son-in-law's illegal activities. The only stuff he knew was Frank Willies, was the president of Willies International Group and Developers. The young lady, whose name was indeed Hazel, glanced at her fellow women first, before she reluctantly followed Harry. Take them to the casinos, bars, and clubs. Harry ordered their men before he strode to his white-tinted SUV that Frank gifted him on his birthday last year. Hazel sat in the back seat, trembling and confused why she was singled out. She felt chills down her spine, especially when Harry sneered at her in the rearview mirror. Their remaining men took the left ladies in 3 black-tinted vans and drove off, leaving the seaport secured and with no loopholes. On the 25th floor in Millennium Suite, Frank sipped the glass of brandy while he was waiting for his assistant. His grin was from ear to ear. He sat on the white Italian couch beside the king-size bed and crossed his legs while he stretched his arms on the edge of the backrest. He lifted his head back while staring at the ceiling. Such a fantastic night, he thought. But when he glanced at his wristwatch, he shook his head. It was no longer night but dawn. It was already 3 a.m. Harry, hurry up! He impatiently muttered in the air as he checked his phone that he took out from his suit. His face, which was beaming with delight, immediately turned dim upon seeing 20 missed calls from his wife. Out of annoyance, he threw his phone on the bed. Time will come, I will strangle you. Butch, he grunted. When he heard 3 loud knocks, he hastily got up and went to the door. His dim aura had turned into a sparkling lust. President, this is Hazel, 23. Harry met him with his appeasing grin. When he shifted his curious stare to the woman who was bowing down, he scanned her from top to bottom. Tall and slender, long black silky hair, pale flawless skin, rich bosoms, kissable lips. His lustful orbs continued to strip her body. His grin was getting wider and wider. Leave us now, Harry, Frank ordered as he locked the door. Inside, Harry heard a loud thud and a soft moan. He then left the VIP suite. After securing Frank's safety, let the game begin, he muttered in the air, referring to his boss' current activity with Hazel. On the second day of the competition, Alyssa, her twin brother, her cousins, and their friends put up a pastry stall in Marysville University, just in front of the baseball field near the oak tree. She was busy wiping the wood folding tables and didn't notice someone had been watching her from afar. As she sprayed a disinfectant, she smoothly wiped the table with a fiber cloth. Her movements were soft and graceful. The person under the tree was enthralled. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Beautiful, he thought while a curved smile was glued to his aura, till he saw someone he knew. He sauntered in their direction, walking past the gorgeous cleaning young lady, as he also turned his head, watching her every move. When he was near his best friend, he called her name right away. Jacinth. Hyacinth was speaking with Ariel when she heard somebody call her name. James. Hey. I thought you were going to play basketball. Why didn't I see you at the welcome ceremony? Hyacinth asked right away. Oh, I had colds, but I am okay now, James lied. He could see at the corner of his eyes that his breathtaking view was approaching, so he cleared his throat and brushed his hair with his fingers, making himself presentable, or in his own word, charming. For the lovely tigress, Sister Jacinth, I have to go now. I have a swimming competition at 4, Alyssa uttered while standing beside a sneering young man. She walked past him, ignoring his plastered smirk. When suddenly, she must be young, Master Hansen's twin sister, James loudly pronounced. She halted in her step and turned around. When she glanced at him, she immediately remembered those annoying lips that were smirking at her. You? She asked internally as her fingers were beginning to curl into fists. She was about to smack him when she realized they're not alone. She composed herself for a while, then coldly asked, "Who is this?" James raised his right eyebrow right away. This, he thought, this gorgeous tigress's lips are itching for punishment. He also asked inwardly, James, this is Allie, my cousin. Alyssa, this is James. He is my classmate in London, and he is also a transferee here. Hyacinth smilingly uttered. Both she and Ariel could feel something between the two. Their cousin was upset. Her best friend was delighted. James even stretched her hand for a warm handshake, but Alyssa's glare was starting to boil. For her cousin's sake, she played nice. Hi! She responded with as cold as an ice, then strode away. Hyacinth and Ariel glanced at each other, asking what had just happened, while James remained rooted on the ground. Icy heart, he thought. James, maybe she is just tired. Hyacinth explained, thinking he might get offended. That is okay. I understand. James simply told her. What he focused on at the moment was the tiny information that she had a swimming competition at 4. Gotta watch that, he uttered in his thoughts, but he needed an alibi to go there. He glanced at Hyacinth, who was preparing, and suddenly a thrilling idea popped up in his mind. Hey, let's watch Melvin swimming. I think it is about to start. Yeah, of course, I am going there now, Hyacinth avidly uttered. Let's go then. James was also excited. They both left the stall right away. In just a few minutes, they were now sitting on the bleachers, waiting for the swimming competition. As the swimmers took their posts, Hyacinth held her breath while watching Melvin. She clasped her hands in a prayer sign and placed them over her mouth. I've heard the swimmer in Firstville is a legend, James whispered in her ear. James, you are making me more anxious, Hyacinth commented while her stares were glued to her boyfriend. I think with your presence he will win. He is going to win it for you. James retracted his first comment when he saw that Hyacinth was really on edge. When they heard the bang of the pistol, the swimmers dove in haste. Melvin was taking the second rank first, was the swimmer in Firstville. Go, Melv, Hyacinth exclaimed. It made her boyfriend snap back and get his head on the game. As a result, he won the competition. Both James and Hyacinth rose from their seats applauding his victory. But what James noticed was Melvin's fretted look that was directed directly to him. I didn't come here for you. I came for her cousin, he uttered inwardly while shrugging his shoulders. The next competition was the women's category that would be held in another lap pool. Hence, they had to leave the men's lap pool and settle on the other side. They were all sitting while waiting for Alyssa, who at that time was at the dressing room. Warming up when their coaches told them to prepare, all 6 young ladies went out of the dressing room, wearing a one-piece uniform swimsuit, white goggles, and white swim caps. Even if she was covered with goggles and a swim cap, James knew the stunning swimmer in the middle was her. But what baffled him was her surname written at the back of her uniform. Williams. He mumbled in his thoughts. He was shy to ask Hyacinth, for she might think he was interested in her cousin. Plus, Melvin was still frowning at him. When the game began, he almost jumped to his feet as he stood up when he witnessed how fast and furious his tigress was. Even Hyacinth and Melvin stood from their seats and cheered for Alyssa. With her excellent stroke, she took first place. "That is my sister!" Hyacinth even exclaimed in glee while pointing at Alyssa. However, just after the competition, one swimmer from Marysville grabbed Alyssa's hand when the latter was about to leave. This made James' eyes narrow. He knew the girl. That is the cheer captain of their university squad. When he saw that Hyacinth was gasping in anger and Melvin tried to stop her, he glanced at them and smiled. He sauntered towards the two who were fighting in whispers and cleared his throat to get their attention. Both the young ladies were dumbfounded. Alyssa was already furious, and here he was sneering widely while winking at her. "Hey, Crystal, right," James began while he swiftly glanced at the other swimmer. "Yeah, I know you. You are James Dean. You are a popular basketball player." Crystal, the other swimmer, smilingly stated. It made Alyssa enraged more. She thought she was an outcast in their conversation. She was about to leave when James held her hand. "Crystal, got a problem with my baby?" He suddenly questioned in a stern tone. It made Crystal's eyes go wide while Alyssa's narrowed. Crystal's lips were forming a what word while Alyssa's were pursed tight. The latter was on the brink of exploding, especially since James was still holding her hand. "I appreciate it if you don't bother my baby anymore, Miss Hills. Can you do that for me?" James even uttered stressing every word onto Crystal. It made her more confused. Instead of arguing, Alyssa glared at James and whispered something before she marched out. "Meet me at Pine Tree Park." "Okay, my baby," James whispered back. When he went back to Hyacinth and Melvin, their brows were furrowed. "What did you tell my cousin?" Hyacinth asked. "Nothing. I just congratulated her, and she got mad," James responded while smiling. "You are acting weird," Melvin couldn't help but comment. Before the two could speak more, James was already striding at a quick pace going to the Pine Tree Park. He was even whistling. When he arrived, Alyssa was mumbling in the air while her hands were crossed over her chest. Based on her furrowed brows and dim face, he could guess she was upset, and he knew exactly the reason why. "Hey, baby," he sweetly spoke, giving Alyssa more reason to get mad. "You have no right to call me that bastard," Alyssa exclaimed, facing him. "What is wrong in calling you baby?" James smilingly asked instead. "You call me that again and I will spank your face." Just one more and her palm might land on his smirking grin. "If I didn't use that term, that Crystal will not stop pestering you. I don't need your help. Who told you to meddle? No one. I just want to." He even winked. Alyssa thought she needed some fresh air. Her cheeks were boiling red in fury, and her fists were really clenched tight. She glared at him one more time before she turned around to leave, when, "How about I buy you dinner?" She was beyond furious that she marched out muttering some words that he couldn't understand. Interesting, he just thought while the corner of his lips curled up.